everyone, my name's Miranda, and today is a very, very special day because the Vampire Academy movie Blood Sisters has finally been released, and that means that I can now share my opinion of the film with you all based on more than just a few random stills and trailers. So yay! The movie's only been out about a week. It came out last Friday, February 7th, so if you haven't seen the film yet and don't want to be spoiled, you're probably not going to want to watch the rest of this video. Bye for now, non-spoilers! Alright, so on to the movie review. I will be completely honest and tell you that I went into this movie with very, very low expectations. I was not thinking it was going to be anything great, and for the most part, those expectations were met. Watching the movie, I almost felt like I had time traveled back a year when Beautiful Creatures came out, because this same time last year, the same thing kind of happened with that movie when it was all hype and no deliver. And I remember before like any of the casting or anything, when they first announced that Vampire Academy was scheduled to be released on Valentine's Day, I wrote on Tumblr that it probably wasn't a good idea considering all that had just happened with Beautiful Creatures and how that absolutely beautifully bombed. And everyone was instantly like,
no, you're wrong. Vampire Academy is on a much superior level to Beautiful Creatures, and it's gonna do so much better. You just wait and see how wrong you're gonna be. Wrong, 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 wrong.
Well, it's a year later, and look who's right. Unlike Beautiful Creatures, however, the Vampire Academy movie did a really good job, I thought, of staying true to the books. Like, granted, everything wasn't in there, but a lot was, and the opening scene was exactly how it was in the book, and I even liked it a little bit better than how it was in the book, because in the book, when they find the Guardians, Rose just kind of like goes and runs for it, and then Dimitri gets them, and they get taken. But in the movie, Rose has like this whole plan where she blows up a freaking car and takes down like 7, 8 foot tall Guardians, and I'm just like, that is a vamp right there. That is Rose Hathaway in essence. Speaking of Dimitri's whole entrance, now, I feel the need to address this because Daniela, he's a good person, I'm sure, but he has always been the weakest point in this movie for me. First of all, the man, he looks like he's 42. I don't understand how he is 28. And especially considering that Zoe Deutsch is only 18, I really feel like his casting was the wrong choice for the movie. The other part with Dimitri is, and this is partly my own fault, but I never read him with a Russian accent. So hearing that like jarring, just like broken Russian accent was like, what is going on? I never pictured it like that. I couldn't understand what he was saying. I needed subtitles. I wasn't sure if he was professing his love to Rose or asking her for extra dumplings when she ordered Chinese food. I said I need a tissue, not I want to kiss you. And I was just like, what is this man saying? There was that one part too, I'm not gonna lie. I laughed a lot at when he spoke. When the Sturgoi were all attacking and they're like going out and they're running and Dimitri's just like, I've got this one, and he like runs off. I laughed so hard. I just like fell out of my chair. Popcorn like flew out of my mouth. It's like his voice, I didn't picture it like that. I did like his scenes with Zoe. I felt like they had good chemistry. I just feel like the movie was so short that their relationship felt so like pushed and rushed. Yes, the moments were cute that they did have, but then they cut out like the really, really cute parts, like when he fixed her hands when they were chapped, when he bought her that lip gloss just to make her happy. Like, they had all these Dimitri moments that were so adorable and like showed how their relationship built up. And in the movie, they just cut them out and put in like these random like ones that felt so forced, like when Rose was like out in the sun and she was just like, oh, the sun feels so good, like making the sex face. I was like, what is this even? The thing that I really loved that they did was the little thing where she would try and sneak up on him and it would never work, and then at the end when they were talking and she was like, I just want you to kiss me one time, not under a lush charm, and he was like, okay, and like she did it, she flipped him, and I was like, yay, Rose, she did that one-handed because her other arm was in a cast. I was like, go Rose, that was so cute. The script was just weird at points, like scenes would just go on when they clearly should have been cut off. The one that I can think of is the one with Rose and Mason where they were just like talking and she was like, get out of my way, Mason. He was like, okay. And like the way he said okay, I was like, someone should have been like, we need to cut this scene off. And they did that like a couple times where I felt like they should have cut the dialogue off and then they could have thrown in more like of those cute little book moments that I liked and would have appreciated. The Sturgoi attack at the beginning of the film was, I don't know, it was cool, but as a book fan, it just felt forced to kind of grab the action because, and it's not really the movie producer's fault, but Vampire Academy, it is the most boring book of the series, and by boring I mean like the least action happens, and that's okay for a 6-book series because you have time, you need to develop your characters and then move on with the plot. But as a potential film franchise, that's not really good. I feel like that is why they added the Strigoi moment in, and it felt weird. To me, I would not get the point of the Strigoi if I hadn't read the books. I'd be like, why do we need these evil vampires? And I absolutely wanted to punch something when Rose got out of the car and she just froze up. Because I get, yeah, that she had those moments where she kind of just clammed up in front of the Strigoi, because they are terrifying. They were terrifying. I get that she's not, she has to learn to become braver, but that was just pathetic. She froze up 5 times, and I was like, Rose, just move. It's one thing to be scared, but I was like, don't just sit there like a sleeping duck or something. It was no fault of Zoe Deutsch, because she did better than I thought she would do as Rose. From the beginning of her casting, I wasn't that behind her. I like her, but I was like, she's not what I picture for Rose. But I think she really understood Rose's voice and her wittiness, and she really brought it. What I really liked about the movie was, I don't know if you've noticed, but there were times when you could tell she had bruises on her arm or her leg. To me, it was showing how much dedication she put into this role and how much training, and it just kind of reinforced it and made it all the more real. So I just think Zoe did such a good job, and I'm so impressed. Kudos to you, Zoe, for completely changing my mind. The biggest problem I had with the movie is that it was focused too much on the politics and the whole mean girl thing with Mia, when it should have been really focusing on the stuff with Lissa and about her spirit and her depression and all that, and that was all just kind of brushed aside, and I felt bad because Lissa never had a defining trait that could be carried out all the way. Sometimes she was happy and sometimes she was like, oh, I'm so scared, and it was without the backstory of spirit and all that, it just looked like this was not a fully developed character. And I hated how they brushed so much of her issues aside, because I have always applauded Rochelle Mead for addressing really heavy issues in her book that we don't see a lot. We have the cutting and depression in Vampire Academy, and then Sydney's kind of body issues in Bloodlines. But in the movie, Lissa does not cut herself. She heals the crow or whatever that was, and then all of a sudden these cuts appear on her arm. And that made me so angry, because it's such a big defining trait of Lissa that she has this depression and she has to work through it. And for them to demean that entire thing just really aggravated me. The whole thing with Spirit was just completely mishandled, because it was not really explained well, I don't feel, at all. If I hadn't read the books, I would be so confused. As it is, I read the books and I was still confused at that. I was like, what is happening? The whole thing with Miss Carp was just ridiculous. In the book, it made sense. In the movie, it was just mismatched together. So we saw these awkward things of Rose flashing back. I never really understood that she had the spirit that Lissa has, because no one ever said the connection for us. It's they can explain all nicely how the bond works, so it sounds like they're not even talking naturally, but the spirit, oh no, we just have to figure that out for ourselves. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then the scene where Lissa healed Rose's ankle, that was really, really weird to me, because in the book, Rose is walking on a bench, and it makes sense that it crumbles, her foot gets stuck, that makes sense. No, in the movie, they make it so they're just walking on a flat path, and I mean, I'm not gonna judge because I fall on flat surfaces all the time, but all of a sudden, the path concaves, there's a mini earthquake, and Rose's foot just goes, and I was like, no one thought that was suspicious at all, that just this path suddenly had a mini earthquake going on it. And then the Bond, I'm glad they kept the Bond in the movie, because I felt like a lot of movie makers would have just been get rid of the Bond, we'll explain it some other way. But it was a very important part of Lissa and Rose's relationship, so I'm glad they kept it in. That being said, I didn't like what they did with their eyes. I get that they kind of had to do it, so the audience who hadn't read the books would understand what was happening, but it kind of made it seem Twilight-ish to me, and I hated that. My 2 favorite characters in the film who I felt were really well represented were Natalie and Christian. I didn't really get Natalie in the book. She was just kind of there for me, but they added her role up. They beefed it up a lot in the movie, and I loved when she was licking the wall. I was like, I can't watch this is disgusting. I felt like it was just, they had really good development with her. You could kind of see more the friendship between Rose, Lissa, and Natalie, and that made the betrayal at the end all the more heartbreaking. I love that scene. That was the scene I've been waiting for, to see her go Strigoi and come in and just like take Rose down. Rose was so badass in that scene, and when she like almost had her and then she hesitated, and Dimitri comes down and is like blah, 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 and is like, Rosa, I will protect you, and that scene just was awesome. It was such good character development in Natalie that we didn't really see in the book, so A+ movie people for adding in Natalie's character. That was a good choice. Then we had Christian. Oh, Christian. I love Christian in the books. He's one of probably my top 3 favorite characters, if not my favorite. And Dom Sherwood, when I saw him, I was just like, this is not at all what I pictured for Christian. He doesn't have the blue eyes. Well, I think he has one blue eye. I'm not sure. And he definitely doesn't have the dark black hair. He just was not what I looked like. And then in the movie, man, that guy, I felt like he just really totally got Christian's character. Like, he just had the snark, the smirks, the everything, and his relationship with Lissa was so cute, and it just made me so happy because they are one of my favorite couples in the entire series, and seeing them like bond and get together was just so cute. And I especially love the scene where he and Rose were like trying to help Lissa and they were researching, and then they kind of walked out and they were like, oh, bye, and she gave him like a cute little hug. It was just really cute. I thought Rose and Christian's relationship, they nail in the movie. It was so cute, and Lissa and Christian's relationship just made me want to fangirl right out of my seat. Now let's get on to my favorite part of the entire movie, the end scene. Now this is usually where book to movie adaptations blow it for me, because they just kind of all fall apart at the end. That's when they try and like manage everything to go together so nicely and leave some cliffhangers for a potential franchise. But Vampire Academy stayed pretty true to what really happened. So we had the whole dance scene, the fight with Mia, blah blah blah, which was, I mean, I'm not gonna get into it. But then Lissa ran away and Victor, of course, kidnapped her. Rose figured it out and went to go see Dimitri, and that scene was weird because it was just like all of a sudden he was like, let's get this dress off, and like he's like, we need to burn it, and just like threw it in the fire, and I was like, what is she going to do for clothes now when you realize that it's a lust charm and she needs to get dressed? That was expensive material, Dimitri. Unlike the book, Dimitri actually figured out it was a lust charm, because in the book it was like he just went to take it off and then they realized that something happened. But in the movie, his hand like awkwardly like clamped over it and like ripped it off her. Like he was like, what is this? We need to get rid of it. So then they took off to go find Lissa. That was exactly how I pictured it, with Rose just like leaning back and like in her mind. I loved when she's like, I just need to focus, and she'll lean back and Christian's there. I was like, oh, Christian, you are the best. That just made me laugh so hard. And then the whole thing with Lissa, I felt like that should have been also a little longer, because it seemed like they tortured her twice and then she was just like, I'll do it! But then she had her moment of redemption at the worst possible time when she compelled the guards to let her out. She snuck out through the window and Rose was like, oh crap, I'm gonna go get this girl before she kills herself. Dimitri and Alberta are busy like busting some kneecaps in there, tearing down the Guardians. And then Rose catches up with Lissa, and there are like all these pice hounds or whatever you call them circling around them. And then a helicopter shows up out of nowhere. I'm like, where are we that we have helicopters showing up? And then boom, Christian just falls and gets shot by Victor. I was like, Victor, why would you shoot Christian? Like, no. And all of a sudden Dimitri and Alberta are like, yeah, screw that, and they just like come and they get him with like a gun and they're like, get down on the ground, and Victor's like, you know the great thing about pice hounds? They love the word attack, and then like their eyes just change and they start running at them, and I was like, oh no, what's gonna happen? And then Christian, that badass, bleeding his spleen out, goes Pachoo! And like does like a burst of fire and just like doesn't even kill these pice hounds. That's how strong these pice hounds are. They just get scared because they're on fire and run away. So then Victor, of course, is like taken, blah blah blah, and Lissa has to heal Christian. So Rose is like, just take some of my blood. So she drinks her blood, she heals Christian, everyone's all happy, blah blah blah. And then we go back to the academy where Victor is now locked up and no one says anything about Natalie, which I'm like, that's suspicious. And then we had the whole speech at the end, which was really pathetic and pointless, by Lissa, about how basically bullying is not cool, which of course we all know that. We don't need a Vampire Academy movie to tell us that. It's just like this whole like anti-bullying message at the end, like they pulled out from nowhere. And I was like, what is going on right now? This is not Vampire Academy. Like, it's a great message, but don't throw it into a movie that does not have that like theme at all. And then the final scene, and then we scan out and we go to this cliff. and we see these two Strigoi, which I thought originally were going to be the two from Frostbite that, like, kidnapped them in the ski resort, and I was like, how'd they get there? But okay, sure. And then apparently no, that was Miss Carp, and we pan in, and there's like thousands upon thousands of Sturgio. And my first thought is, of course, man, Belle and Edward have been getting busy. But then I realized that no, that is supposed to be like the Strigoi waiting to attack the school, and I go, wait a sec. Wasn't that in the third book? Like, why are you skipping these books? So, like, that cliffhanger was just completely pointless to me. They could have cut so much out of this movie and added so much more to make it more cohesive and less confusing to people who have not read the books. Because, like I said, I had read the books and I was still like, what, baby? What? Like, I was just, no. Overall, I would give the film 2 out of 5 stars. I was not impressed with it. There were certain aspects of the movie that I did like. I liked the end. I felt like the scenery was really pretty. St. Vladimir was exactly how I pictured it down to a T, except for when they were rolling up all those woods, because my friend was like, what is this, Twilight? And I was like, I know, if you're like trying to distance yourself from the only other big vampire like genre out there, maybe you don't use the same exact scenery photos as they do. Just an idea. I really like the whole outfits too of St. Vladimir. Like, that was a cute school costume, and I was just really impressed with most of the cast, aside from Danielle, which wasn't his fault. He just wasn't how I pictured in my mind. Everyone else I absolutely was impressed with for the most part. It wasn't like a City of Bones situation where I was just like completely like shocked at how good it was. Oh, and then Mason. How could I forget about Mason? His character, I tolerated him in the books, like he had a purpose in the books, but in the movie, he was absolutely pointless. Like, they cut Eddie out, and I can almost feel like they should have cut Mason out too, because he literally had, like, the man had like 5 lines in the entire movie, and one of those lines actually had the word boobies in it. Yes, I said boobies. I don't know what they did with Mason's character, but there were times I forgot about him. Like, I was like, who is Rose talking? And I'm like, oh yeah, Mason. He's actually in this movie. So to wrap this little video up, I was just not that impressed with the movie. I didn't think I was gonna be, and I wasn't. So if you haven't seen the movie, please go see it. Even if you like don't think it's gonna be good, just go and support the people who did like the movie, because they deserve the chance to have a sequel. And like I said, I would really like to see a sequel, just to see Adrian and like how all the actors like developed along with their characters. Weinstein Company, if you're watching this, we want a Frostbite movie. Alright, so if you've seen the movie, comment down below, tell me what you thought. I'm really interested to see what you all have to say if you've seen it. It was just, there's been so much buzz and anticipation building around it, and now that we've all seen it, it feels like a bubble has burst. So if you've seen it, if you haven't seen it, just leave a comment down below. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, just tell me it all. And thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!